Alice Lynn always saw herself as my sugar mama, even though I never touched a dime of her money. After her first love came back into the picture, she tried to push me into another woman's hotel room. "Help me out here," she'd said. "Close this deal for me, and I'll make it worth your while." But when I actually started seeing that other woman, Alice completely fell apart. I didn't say a word. "Who said you could have a change of heart?" she demanded. I had been keeping Alice company at karaoke bar late into the night when she hooked my chin with her finger, and I instinctively pulled away. For some reason, she always loved to do that, to hook my chin like she was teasing a puppy or a kitten. It didn't matter that I was much taller than her petite frame, but she never did that to Ethan. She would blush just from brushing his hand, even though Ethan was always so indifferent to her. And I was supposed to be her boyfriend. Alice hooked my chin again. "Black, how many years has it been now?" I brushed her hand away. "We've been dating for 3 years. Alice's best friend teased from the side. "Oh, look, the little puppy's mad, Alice. You'd better buy him something to cheer him up." Alice laughed along with her. "What do you want?" I just shook my head and said nothing. I was tired of having to explain myself. I had been with Alice for 3 years and had never taken a single penny from her. The credit card she gave me sat in her drawer, untouched. Everything she ever bought for me, I left it in its box. The only exception was an old album of her childhood drawings. That I kept. I would lie in bed and flip through its pages whenever I had a quiet moment. But to Alice, I was still just the little puppy she kept around, not her boyfriend. She snuggled into my arms like a kitten, shifting until she found a comfortable position. She drew lazy circles on my chest with her finger. "Did you know Ethan's back?" I froze. Ethan, Alice's first love. She had even called out his name once when we were together. After that night, I never stayed over at her place again. This was the first time I'd seen her in 2 weeks. She nuzzled against me like a cat. "Black, this time, Ethan and I need to figure things out for good." My hand, still resting on Alice's back, went stiff. My throat was dry, and a wave of acid churned in my stomach, burning its way up to my chest. It took me a moment to find my voice. I cleared my throat. "So what does that mean?" Alice handed me a room key and pressed against me again. "Black, I think this might be it for us." I stared at the key card in my hand and said nothing. I had given Alice my all for 3 years. Even when everyone assumed I was just after her money, I never bothered to explain. I ran through a thunderstorm to hold her because she was afraid of the thunder. I once flew into a blizzard just to bring back a handful of fresh snow because she said she wanted to see it. But I found out later that it had been snowing heavily in Denver, the city where Ethan was living that day. It wasn't my snow she wanted to see. I worried about her stomach problems, her drinking, the pressure she was under at work. I ran myself ragged taking care of her, even making my own father furious with me, thinking I was just some lovesick fool. But I still couldn't compete with Ethan. I couldn't compete with a single word from him. My stomach twisted. I swallowed hard, picked up the glass of whiskey in front of me, and threw it back. The liquor burned, making the ache in my gut even worse, but the pain was a welcome distraction. I raised a hand and gently pushed Alice away. "All right," I said, managing a smile. "As you wish." Alice blinked, clearly not expecting me to agree so easily. "Black, I'll help you find job." I shook my head, refusing her offer as I stood up and straightened my clothes. "No need, Alice. Everything you've given me over the last 3 years, the card, the watch, the limited edition sneakers, I put it all in the safe. The password is your birthday." I turned to leave, but Alice grabbed the corner of my shirt. "Black, wait." Her delicate face tilted up to look at me. "You don't seem very upset about this." I didn't answer, just turned to go. As I was about to walk out of the room, Alice caught up to me, her phone in her hand. No one was singing anymore. The room was quiet enough that I could hear Ethan's voice on the other end of the line. "Make him go to that room," he was saying. "Then I'll believe there's nothing left between you two." Alice hung up, her face a blank mask. Her beautiful, fox-like eyes narrowed, a sure sign she was angry. She jabbed a finger at my chest. "Black, I'm going to ask you one more time. Why did you agree to break up so easily? Aren't you hurt?" I just looked down and laughed. "Aren't you the one who wanted this? I'm just giving you what you want. How is that suddenly the wrong thing to do?" Alice's eyes narrowed again. After a long moment, she smiled. "Fine, just fine." She took out a key card and threw it at me. This is for a room upstairs. There's a woman in there. I need you to keep her happy so my negotiation tomorrow goes smoothly. Do a good job, and I'll give you a generous breakup settlement. Otherwise, you get nothing." Her fingers slid across my cheek, her lips curling into a smile, but her eyes were pure ice. The ache in my stomach returned, and my heart felt like it was being squeezed. I grabbed her wrist. "Alice, what do you think I am?" Alice just smiled at me. "A fun toy. And if a toy is fun, why not let my friends play with it too?" I stared at Alice for a long, long time. This was the woman I had loved for so many years. Even her best friend thought she'd gone too far and stood up to stop her. "That's enough, Alice. If you're going to break up, do it right." But Alice stubbornly held the key card out to me. "Are you going or not?" I took a deep breath, an empty, desolate feeling spreading through my chest. I looked down at the card for a long moment, then smiled. "I'm going." I took the card from her and turned to leave. "Black, you," Alice called after me. I stopped, waiting for her to say more, but she didn't. Not a single word. I sighed, a bitter taste in my mouth. Just this one last time, I'd do what she wanted. Then I would cut her out of my life for good and never look back. I took the elevator upstairs and ran right into the hotel manager. Seeing me, he quickly stepped aside. "Mr. Black, you're here. Is there a message from your father?" I shook my head. "Just a personal matter." The key card Alice had given me was for a hotel our family owned. In fact, everyone involved, including Alice, was an executive at my family's company. It's just that I hadn't officially joined the company yet, so most people didn't know who I was. I never told Alice because I was afraid the difference in our wealth and status would poison what we had. I even knew that the woman in that room was one of our company's most important clients. My father and I were the ones who had secured Alice the right to even be in this negotiation. I took a deep breath and opened the door. The room was dark, with only a single dim lamp glowing by the sofa. A slender figure was resting on the couch. Her naturally curly hair was draped over her chest, and she wore a long, comfortable-looking beige cashmere dress. This had to be the client, Chloe Miller. Hearing the door, she opened her eyes. Her long, almond-shaped eyes stared at me, unblinking. After a moment, she smiled. "Wow, that Alice really is willing to pull out all the stops." She stood up and stretched. I just made one offhand comment about her having a cute boy toy, and she actually took me seriously. I lowered my gaze. "I'm just here to look. If it was just a joke, I'll leave." As angry as I wasn't going to humiliate myself. Chloe raised an eyebrow. "She didn't force you, did she? Because if she did, I can't let you in." I didn't say anything. Chloe frowned. "So she did force you. That's not right. I'm not into that kind of thing. You should go." I nodded and turned to leave. I went home and locked myself in my room for 3 days. On the third day, my dad dragged me out, saying he was taking me to a business dinner to help me build some connections for when I finally joined the company. When we walked into the private dining room, I immediately saw a familiar face at the table. It was Chloe. Seeing me, she raised her eyebrows, her lips parting slightly as if to speak, but she said nothing. She just gave me a knowing smile. I knew she was making fun of me, but I had to pretend not to notice and greet her warmly. No matter how I felt, business was business. Chloe raised her glass to me. "Mr. Anderson, here's to you. There aren't many earnest young men like you around these days." She smiled, her eyes crinkling, clearly mocking my naivete. I knew that in our circle, guys usually dated models and socialites, and they were always the ones doing the dumping, never the other way around. I was the anomaly, the guy who tried to be a boy toy and failed. I gave a bitter smile, raised my glass, and drank it down. "You're right, of course, Ms. Miller." I poured another glass and raised it to Chloe. "Sorry you had to see that embarrassing display." The alcohol burned away the sorrow, so harsh it made my eyes water. My dad, who always doted on me, quickly patted my back. "Look at you. Slow down. Don't give Ms. Miller a reason to laugh at you." I coughed and wiped my eyes, managing a smile. "Yeah, I guess I am pretty ridiculous." I nodded to Chloe. Sorry to be the evening's entertainment. Chloe stared at my red-rimmed eyes for a moment, then just nodded without a word. For the rest of the dinner, she didn't toast me again, and the way she looked at me was much gentler. After dinner, my dad asked me to drive Chloe back to her hotel. We sat in silence in the car, Chloe just looking out the window the whole way. As we got close to the hotel, she finally turned to look at me. I'm sorry. I was confused. Sorry for what? You didn't do anything. Chloe shook her head. I was making fun of you in my head, but then I realized I was making fun of your pain. You shouldn't mock someone when they're hurting. I'm sorry. I looked down and shook my head. You don't have to apologize. I probably deserve it. The car pulled up to the hotel entrance, and I got out to open the door for Chloe. I won't go up with you, I said. But Chloe looked at me and asked, don't you want to come up for a drink? She smiled, her pretty almond-shaped eyes crinkling at the corners. I brought whiskey. I hesitated. It's getting pretty late. She was an important client, and I didn't want to be rude. Besides, if anyone was in danger by me going upstairs, it was her, not me. Chloe laughed again. I'm not afraid of you. So why are you afraid of me? Though she was smiling, there was a serious look in her eyes. I've been hurt too. We're just a couple of wounded souls. I was struck by the flash of pain in her eyes. If I looked in a mirror right then, I'd probably see the same sorrow in my own. I closed the car door. Then I'd be honored. For the past few days, every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Alice's cold stare, the key card she threw at me, and the image of her with Ethan. I felt like I couldn't take it anymore. I really needed a drink to just forget what had become of 3 years of loving her with everything I had. I walked into the lobby with Chloe. The manager approached us respectfully, about to speak, when a shocked voice cut him off. Black. My whole body tensed up. It was Alice's voice. She sounded surprised, but more than that, she sounded angry. What are you doing here? I turned and saw Alice walking out of the hotel restaurant with a few clients. Her eyes were narrowed, fixed on me. Her gaze flickered from me to Chloe, and she forced a smile. Ms. Miller, it seems my recommendation was to your liking. Chloe smiled, linking her arm through mine, and nodded at Alice. I like him quite a lot. I was stunned by Chloe's move, and so was Alice. Her face went pale, and her voice was unsteady when she spoke. Ms. Miller, could I borrow Black for just a minute? I just remembered something I need to ask him. Chloe glanced at me, and when I didn't object, she shrugged. Just 2 minutes. We're in a hurry to get upstairs. Alice bit her lip and beckoned me over. I didn't move. Alice gritted her teeth. Black, get over here. Her delicate face was a mask of fury, the coldness in her eyes deepening. I took a deep breath and walked over to her, having no idea what she could possibly want to say. At this point, it certainly wasn't going to be an apology. Alice pulled me a few steps away, her fingers like ice, her face dark, and her jaw tight. Black, don't you feel disgusting? I was stunned. I could take anything from her, but I couldn't accept her calling me disgusting. How am I disgusting? I asked, my lips tight. Alice's eyes burned with a cold fire. I didn't think you'd actually go up there. Did you? Did you really go? She scrutinized my face, my neck, looking like she wanted to inspect every inch of me. What did you do, huh? I looked at her furious expression and suddenly felt a strange mix of surprise and amusement. I glanced down at her trembling hands. Didn't you tell me to go? Alice, I was just following your orders. I was mad at you. I was just mad. The fire in Alice's eyes burned even brighter, turning the whites of her eyes red. How was I supposed to know you'd actually go and sleep with someone else? Black, don't you have any shame? Alice was an executive. She was a master at hiding her emotions. She had always treated me with a cool indifference, teasing me more than anything else. But right now, her eyes were red and her lips were trembling with rage. She looked like a child whose favorite toy had just been snatched away. It made her seem real, a flash of the genuine Alice I remembered from when we were kids. I closed my eyes and sighed. Alice, I have to go. We're done. I turned and walked back to Chloe, letting her take my arm as we stepped into the elevator. Behind me, Alice's voice, low and furious, called out, Black. I paused for a second, but then kept walking without looking back. Chloe and I drank a lot that night. I didn't talk, and she didn't either. We just silently poured, silently toasted, and silently drank. I stared out the window, thinking about the last 3 years. She stared out the window too, lost in her own world. After a long time, I saw the glint of tears in her eyes as she turned and smiled at me. Why are there so many people in this world who don't know how to cherish what they have? She asked, her smile bitter. They just trample all over someone's real feelings. Don't they feel bad at all? I just shook my head and took another drink. Chloe turned to look out at the city lights again, and the tears in her eyes finally formed a single drop that rolled down her cheek. We drank for 5 hours, from evening until the early morning. Drunk, I carried a sleeping Chloe to her bed, covered her with a blanket, and staggered my way downstairs. As I reached the lobby, I heard a voice call my name. Black. I turned and saw Alice, curled up on a lobby sofa, wrapped in a shawl. Her hair was a mess, and her makeup was smudged. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. Black, I've been waiting for you all night. Why are you just coming down now? She walked towards me. I've been thinking. You're not that kind of person. Nothing happened between you two, right? I rubbed my temples, unable to speak. My head was splitting from the alcohol, a pain matched only by the ache in my heart. Alice was staring at me, unwilling to give up without an answer. I suddenly wanted to laugh. In the past, it was always me waiting for her, spending sleepless nights wondering where she was. Waiting for her to text that she was working late, but the office building was dark. Then I'd see a post on her best friend's Facebook page, a picture of Ethan raising a glass to Alice, both of them smiling. Once, twice, again and again, until I finally gave up hope. And now she was the one waiting all night for me. Why couldn't she have done this sooner? I laughed. Alice, does it still matter to you? Do we really need to explain anything to each other anymore? Alice hesitated, searching for a reason. After a moment, she said, You owe me money. So why can't I ask? I pressed my temples, feeling that familiar wave of disappointment. Enough disappointment piled on top of itself becomes despair. And I had despaired of Alice long ago. I held my forehead, trying to push back the headache. Alice, if you ever cared about me at all, you would have realized that in 3 years, I never spent a penny of your money. I never even touched your card. But Alice didn't believe me. Then what about your clothes? Your watch? Your bags? That was my own money. I interrupted, my patience finally gone. Alice, everyone around you kisses up to you for your money. So you think everyone is like that. But I'm not. I told her, word by word, I'm different. Alice bit her lip. Black, can we just talk? I shook my head. Talk about what, Alice? I decided it was time to rip the old wound wide open and make things clear once and for all. Should we talk about how every time Ethan calls, you push me away to run to him? Or how every time he's back in town, you're suddenly working overtime all night, even though the office is dark and the security guards are asleep? Or how about the fact that on Ethan's word, you wouldn't even give me the dignity of a clean breakup, instead trying to pin me out like some toy? Even though it was over, even if I was letting go, I still trembled. The memories were like steel needles, piercing my heart and making it hard to breathe. I took a deep breath and asked Alice, So, what do you want to talk about? I let a mocking smile spread across my face. Or what? Have you decided to leave Ethan and want me back? Alice was silent. Then, she started to cry. Black, she said, covering her face. I can't. I've waited for him for too long. I closed my eyes, the pain in my chest tearing me apart. I heard my own voice, sounding cold and distant. Fine. Then just leave me alone, okay? Don't worry about who I drink with, whose room I go into, or whose bed I sleep in. From now on, it has nothing to do with you. Alice sobbed quietly. I turned and walked toward the door. The cold morning air was sharp, sobering me up and blowing away the last shred of my hesitation. When I got home, I drunkenly searched my bedroom. After a while, I found it, an old photo album. It was the only thing of Alice's I had ever kept. Alice used to be a wonderful artist as a kid, and the album was filled with her vivid drawings of 2 children, a pretty, lively little girl and a quiet little boy. The little girl held the little boy's hand everywhere they went, never letting go. Even when older kids bullied them, they just held on to each other's hands and refused to be separated. The pages of the album had turned yellow with age, and many of the pencil lines were blurred, but I still treasured it. I'd rescued it from the trash when Alice had been about to throw it away. I looked through it often. Only when I looked at that album could I feel that Alice had once shown me real warmth, that she had once held my hand so tightly, as if she'd never let go. Closing the album, I fell asleep in my clothes. In my dreams, the little girl version of Alice held my hand and ran with me. Then, it was the Alice of today, looking at me coldly and saying, I'm tired of you. Let's break up. I slept until 10 in the morning, and woke up to a bunch of missed calls from my dad. Come to the office at noon, his message said. Take Chloe Miller out. Show her some of the local sites. I realized my dad was serious about setting me up with Chloe. In families like ours, marriages are usually arranged. Everyone just accepts it. Everyone but me. I thought I could make it work with Alice. I always fought my dad on it, refusing to go on any of the dates he arranged, which is why I still hadn't started working at the company. Even now, I didn't want to marry someone I didn't love. I didn't want to have a kid just for the sake of it, only to live separate lives once the child was born. I wanted to refuse, but then I remembered the single tear that had fallen down Chloe's cheek as she looked out the window last night. It had fallen silently onto the carpet, her face completely expressionless. As the city lights reflected in her almond-shaped eyes, I'd seen a flicker of a deep sorrow, and that flicker made it impossible for me to say no. So at noon, I drove to the office. I waited in the lobby, scrolling through my phone while I waited for Chloe to come down. As I was scrolling, a pair of beige high heels stepped into my field of vision. Thinking it was Chloe, I smiled and looked up. I've been waiting for you. But when I looked up, it was Alice. She was dressed in a sharp business suit. Her makeup light, but it couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. Her beautiful face looked exhausted. She looked at me quietly. Black, you came to find me, right? But what's the point now? I called out to you that day, and you didn't even turn around. I was stunned. I didn't come to find you. Alice frowned. Then why else would you be here? I'm waiting for someone. As soon as the words were out of my mouth, someone tugged on my sleeve. An arm linked through mine, and a smiling voice said, "Shall we go?" I turned my head and saw it was Chloe. She was dressed in denim today, her hair in 2 braids, looking much more cheerful and lively than the last 2 times I'd seen her. She tilted her head and smiled at me. "Aren't you here to take me out for the day?" Looking at her bright eyes and smiling dimples, I suddenly felt as warm as if the sun were shining on my back. I nodded. "Let's go. I'll take you to the wetlands preserve first, and then we can go for a hike." As Chloe and I walked out, I didn't even notice she was still holding my arm. But behind us, I heard Alice's voice. "Black, come back." I didn't stop. Her voice was choked with tears. "Come back. Look at me." I just waved a hand behind me without looking back, got in my sports car with Chloe, and drove off. A lot of people from the company saw us leave, but no one looked more shocked than Alice. Alice sent me an iMessage. "Where did you get that sports car? Did Chloe give it to you? Black, are you with her for her money?" A few minutes later, another one came through. "Black, you're not that kind of person, are you? Chloe's world is different from ours. She's just playing with you." I texted back. "Weren't you just playing with me, too?" Alice didn't reply. Chloe took the phone out of my hand. "We're supposed to be having fun, so let's have fun." Why the long face? She looked out the window. "There's no problem a drink can't solve. And if one drink doesn't work, have 2. I remembered her tear from the other night and couldn't help but ask, "Ms. Miller, it sounds like you've got some baggage of your own." Chloe turned from the window and smiled at me. She looked out at the view of the wetlands and said calmly, "My ex-boyfriend didn't know about my family's money at first. He swore he loved me more than anything. Later, after I took over the family business, I refused some of his more unreasonable demands. So he hired people to kidnap me, hoping for a huge ransom. The plan was to kill me afterward." I was stunned. After a moment, I apologized. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked." Chloe just shook her head. "It's okay. It's all in the past now." She tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "But for a while back then, drinking was the only way I got through it. That's why I suggested it. I know how much it hurts when someone betrays your trust like that." She said it so casually, but I suddenly remembered that Chloe was only 26. She'd been forced to take over a massive company after her father had a stroke. To be kidnapped by the person you love at a time like that must have been devastating. I hesitated, then patted her shoulder. "It's all in the past." I spent the rest of the day showing Chloe around. During a break, I checked my phone and saw a new post on Alice's best friend's Facebook page. The caption read, "Alice is engaged to her one true love." The picture showed Alice in our company lobby, reaching out to take a bouquet of roses from Ethan, a diamond ring sparkling on her finger. Alice's best friend had commented on her own post, "Some people just successfully blew their very last chance to make things right." I looked at the picture of Alice and Ethan embracing and felt nothing. It was like a guillotine that had been hanging over my head for years had finally dropped. I actually felt relieved. I put my phone away and took Chloe hiking, then out to dinner and a movie. By the time I dropped her off, it was already 10 o'clock. On my way home, I got a call. It was Alice, and she was clearly drunk. "Black, didn't you see the post? Why didn't you do anything?" I laughed. "What kind of reaction did you want? You want me to congratulate you? Send a gift." Alice was quiet for a moment. "Black, you're not happy, are you?" She said. "If you're unhappy, just say the word and I'll." She trailed off. I looked down, a mocking smile on my face. "And you'll what? It's not like you're going to turn Ethan down, right?" Alice hesitated, then hesitated again. I laughed out loud. "Alice, if you want my blessing, you have it. I wish you and Ethan a lifetime of happiness. Don't be conflicted anymore. You can't let him go." Alice was silent. After a moment, just as I was about to hang up, she said, "I thought I couldn't let him go, but now I'm not so sure. Black, I don't know what to do. When I see you with Chloe, it feels like there's a fire in my chest." I hung up the phone without another word. You can come back from disappointment. You can't come back from despair. My dad was pleased to see I was no longer debasing myself for some random female employee he couldn't understand. He encouraged me to finally start at the company. He suggested I start by heading up the collaboration with Chloe's company. In the meantime, Alice sent me a text. "Black, I regret it. I ignored it and blocked her on everything. Her phone number, iMessage, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, every social media app one could think of. I wanted her completely out of my life." Alice's best friend went off on me on Facebook, blaming me for driving Alice crazy. Later, even Ethan called me. "Black, you play hard to get pretty well, but you're just a toy. Alice will never actually care about you." After hanging up, I looked at the custom suit my dad had made for me and got lost in thought. I wondered if Ethan knew that his new boss, starting tomorrow, was named Black Anderson. The next day, there was a big department meeting that included the partnership division. Ethan and Alice, both managers, were in the conference room, eagerly waiting for the chairman's son to make his entrance. They were all smiles, waiting for the door to open. And then I walked in. Alice shot to her feet. "Black, why are you here?" Before she could finish, my new assistant introduced me respectfully. "This is Mr. Anderson's son, Black Anderson. You'll all be reporting to him from now on. I expect your full cooperation and best work." Alice froze. I watched the color drain from her face. "Black, you're—" No wonder she didn't know. I'd never come to the office, never mentioned my family. I was so obedient, so easy to please. Who would have ever guessed I was the sole heir? I sat down and motioned for her to do the same. "Manager Lynn, no need to be so formal. Sit down." Alice remained stiff, unable to move. Ethan had to physically pull her down into her seat. His own face was even darker, a sickly, ashen color. I looked down at the documents on the table and asked them to begin their reports, one by one. When it was Alice's turn, she stammered through her first sentence, and I interrupted her. "If Manager Lynn can't explain it clearly, find someone who can. This is the empire my father built with his bare hands. It's not a place for personal feelings." Ethan's report was actually decent, except for the way his hands trembled when he opened his folder. The meeting lasted an hour. After it was over, just as I stepped out of the conference room, Alice finally seemed to snap out of it and came chasing after me. "Black, you—" But once again, she couldn't finish her sentence, because Chloe was waiting for me outside my new office, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. "Everything went smoothly," she said with a smile. The sunlight streamed in from the window behind her, illuminating her and the flowers in a warm glow. I smiled and took them. "Thank you. Come on in." Alice tried to follow us into the office, but my assistant blocked the doorway. Chloe sat across from me, arranging the sunflowers in a vase. "Black, our collaboration is set to end next month," she said with a smile. "I probably won't be coming around here as often after that." I suddenly felt a pang of disappointment. I wasn't sure why, but after thinking about it, I figured it was just because I had come to rely on her company during one of the hardest times of my life. I watched her arrange the flowers for a moment, then asked impulsively, "Can I still come visit you in Chicago?" Chloe looked up at me, her eyes twinkling. After a few seconds, she smiled and looked down. "You're welcome anytime." I swallowed hard, a sudden wave of nervousness washing over me, as if there was more I wanted to say. But the office door burst open, interrupting the moment. I looked over, annoyed, to see Alice barging in. Her eyes were red, and she had lost all of her usual composure. "Are you really the Andersons' only son?" I nodded. Chloe added with a smirk, "That's right. Manager Lynn, you kept the chairman's son as your little pet for 3 years." Alice's face went even whiter. "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at her perfectly made-up face and realized I couldn't see the little girl from my memories in her anymore. I closed my eyes, the last bit of hope gone, and decided to stop hiding. "Alice, I'm not just an Anderson." I took a breath. I had another name when I was a kid. Black Morgan. Thud. Alice had collapsed to the floor, knocking over a teacup. Her hand was cut and bleeding badly, but she didn't seem to notice. She just stared at me as if she'd never seen me before in her life. After a long moment, she seemed to remember something terrifying. "What have I done?" she whispered. It was hard to tell if she was asking me or herself. "Oh God, what have I done?" When I was a kid, my dad was the son of a wealthy man, and we had my grandfather's last name, Morgan. But my grandfather got addicted to gambling, lost the entire family fortune, and then just abandoned my grandmother and the rest of us, disappearing without a trace. We fell into poverty, living in the slums, my dad working desperately to pay off the debts. I went from being the richest kid in our school to the poorest, which naturally made me a target. At that time, there was another kid at school who got picked on, a girl named Alice. Her dad was disabled and her mom was mentally ill. The first time a group of them cornered me, Alice appeared out of nowhere, grabbed my hand, and we ran like the wind. She knew all the back alleys and shortcuts. No one could ever catch us. That's how we met. In the days that followed, Alice and I stuck together for survival. We got beat up together, we fought back together, we had our lunches stolen together, we went hungry together, and we begged for scraps from the corner stores together. Later, my dad moved us to a new city to start over, and I had to transfer schools. Alice and I didn't want to be separated, so we ran away from home together. My dad had to call the police to find us. When we had to say goodbye, I promised Alice I would come back for her. During all the years we were apart, not a day went by that I didn't think of the girl who had been through so much with me. Fortunately, my dad's new business took off, and we were able to move back to our hometown. Sadly, my grandmother passed away from overwork. My dad said that since my grandfather had abandoned us and my grandmother had given her whole life for us, we should take her maiden name. That's when I became Black Anderson. When we moved back, Alice had just started working at my family's company. She was brilliant and hardworking, but she didn't recognize me. As I got closer to her, I realized she avoided talking about her childhood at all costs and had cut ties with everyone from her past. I hid my past, pursued her relentlessly, and finally won her over. I thought I had finally fulfilled my childhood promise. I never expected I was just a placeholder. Now, looking at Alice on the floor, the part of my heart that loved her felt nothing. But the little boy I used to be, the one inside me, was crying. We had promised we'd be together forever when we grew up. Back then, holding hands, we were inseparable. But in the end, this is what it came to. I asked my assistant for a first aid kit, then squatted down and tended to Alice's hand. As I applied the antiseptic and a bandage, I smiled at her. "I really thought we were going to keep our promise," I said softly. "I thought we'd be together." Tears streamed from Alice's eyes, her lips trembling. She couldn't speak, just made small, pained whimpering sounds. But somehow this is where we ended up. I helped her to her feet and then stood up myself. "Alice, we can't go back. This is the end of the road for us." Tears streamed down Alice's face, her beautiful eyes filled with pain and pleading. After a long moment, she finally managed to speak, her voice trembling. "If I had known it was you, I never would have treated you like that. It's too late." I opened the office door. "Alice, that time is gone. We've hit a dead end." Alice stood outside my office door for a long time that day, crying until she completely broke down. Eventually, she attracted my dad's attention. When my dad came down, I was handing Alice the old sketchbook. "This is the only thing of yours I ever kept," I told her. "Now that I think about it, there's no reason to hold on to it anymore. We both need to move on." Alice's trembling hands opened the album. She looked at the childish drawings of two kids, one getting beat up while the other cried, one running away while the other created a distraction, one holding the other, just looking up at the sky. and on the last page, the two of them making a promise to be together forever. Every pencil stroke was so sincere back then. It makes everything that came after feel like a cruel joke. Alice flipped to the last page, and a tear splashed onto the drawing. She slammed the album shut, turned, and ran, sobbing. Her staggering figure, her trembling shoulders. For a moment, it was like I was seeing that little girl again, running from the bullies. My dad came and stood beside me. "Are you going to keep her on?" he asked. I hesitated for a moment. If she does good work, she can stay. If not, let her go. In my heart, I still had faith in her. The girl who clawed her way out of the slums, who reinvented herself and cut away her past. She had earned her position. She just hadn't kept our promise. But that's okay. It's all in the past now. I turned to Chloe. "I have a business trip to Chicago this month. Will you be there to welcome me?" Chloe looked at me quietly for a moment. Then she handed me one of the sunflowers from a bouquet. "Welcome." Ethan resigned. Even if he hadn't, he wouldn't have been able to stand seeing me every day, taking my orders. Alice had helped him a lot in his career, though, and after he quit, he struggled to find another good job. He got frustrated and wanted to come back, but I don't do second chances. I don't let people treat me like a fallback option. It's the same in your career as it is in love. After that day, Alice took a leave of absence. She hadn't taken a single vacation day in years, and now she was taking a full month. A month later, she was waiting for me downstairs at the office. She had lost a lot of weight. Her hair was longer and untrimmed, and she'd swapped her power suit for casual clothes. It was one of the matching couple's outfits I had bought for us. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears. "Black," she said, "this past month, I've gone to every church I could find. I've been praying for time to turn back." She gave a bitter smile. "I know it's crazy, but I couldn't help it. What if there really is a God who's listening? If I could go back, I would never, ever treat you that way." I looked at my watch. "Alice, I have to pick someone up for dinner, so let's make this quick. Also, work has been incredibly busy lately. I'd advise against taking any more personal leave unless it's a medical or family emergency." Alice was stunned. After a moment, she smiled bitterly. "So I don't have a chance, do I?" I didn't say anything because just then I saw Chloe walking toward us. Chloe walked over with a smile. I came early to beat the traffic. I reached out and took her hand. "Let's go. We can get an early dinner and catch a movie." We walked away hand in hand, forgetting Alice was even there. From behind us, her voice came, soft and broken. "Black, I'm here to resign. I can't face you anymore." Chloe stopped and looked at me. "Should you talk to her?" I shook my head. "No need." I turned back to Alice and gave her a sincere smile, the kind I used to give her when we were kids. "Alice, I accept your resignation. I wish you all the best." Turning around, I walked away with Chloe. The sound of crying behind us grew louder, eventually turning into gut-wrenching sobs of regret. But I couldn't look back. Chloe and I had a long road ahead of us to walk together. I held her hand tightly, and she squeezed back. This time, neither of us was ever letting go. Alice's story. I hate it when people bring up my childhood. It was the most shameful, unbearable time of my life. I worked like a maniac, studied like a maniac, all to escape the shadow of those years. The shadow of being laughed at, of being bullied. But the one thing I could never shake was the memory of a little boy's smile. His smile was so real. Black and I became inseparable. We went everywhere together. I can still hear his childish voice, solemnly promising me, "When I grow up, I'm going to work hard and make a lot of money and marry you." Back then, we thought marriage was a guarantee you'd never be separated. I grew up faster than he did, though. I knew it wasn't realistic. Kids like us couldn't afford to like each other. We'd just drag each other down. But somehow I still nodded. "Okay," I said. "I'll wait for you." Even now, looking back, I have no idea why I said yes. Later, Black had to move to another city. He hugged me and cried. I usually made it a rule to stay out of trouble, but that day, something just snapped in me. "Why don't we just run away?" I said. "We can survive. We can collect cans." Black nodded seriously, and we ran away to the edge of town, just walking and holding hands. We were so naive back then. We really thought we could make it on our own. But less than a day later, the police found Black. No one came looking for me. My parents hadn't even reported me missing. When the police brought us back and we had to say goodbye, Black cried his eyes out hugging me so tight. "Alice, wait for me," he sobbed. "I'll come back for you. I promise." By then, I already knew adults didn't keep their promises, let alone kids. But when Black said it, for some reason, I believed him. I didn't cry. I just nodded very seriously. "I'll wait for you." 10 years passed. My father was disabled, but he was also a gambling addict. Whenever he lost, he'd sell whatever we had left. Finally, he pinned all his hopes on me. "If you just sleep with a dealer for one night," he said, "our whole lives could turn around." He even brought the dealer home to look me over. But that day, my mother had one of her episodes. She was waving a kitchen knife around. When my mom was lucid, she loved me. She hugged me and said go, and never, ever come back. I grabbed my ID and ran. My mother set our shack on fire. From then on, I was homeless. I worked my ass off. I got a job at Anderson Corporation. Everyone at work knew not to mess with me. I was ruthless to anyone who got in my way. I had to be. That instinct was beaten into me as a kid. Old classmates heard I was doing well and tried to get friendly, but they didn't get it. I rejected my past with every fiber of my being. Anyone who even mentioned the old me, I cut them out of my life. No hesitation. That was my shame, my pain, a festering wound no one was allowed to touch. The simple, innocent Alice was gone. In her place was this new Alice, a person with no morals, who lived only for herself. I drank, I partied, I lived recklessly. I chased Ethan Carter, a guy from a family of academics with a fancy education. He was like some unattainable dream from my childhood. In my childhood dreams, I was a college professor. I knew Ethan was just stringing me along, but I was like a donkey chasing a carrot on a stick, exhausted but unwilling to give up. Other guys pursued me, rich guys, but I couldn't stand them. Every little thing about their wealth was a painful needle, poking at the self-esteem that had been crushed into dust when I was a kid. They had no idea what it was like to have nothing. My deep-seated inferiority complex was impossible to shake. So I let Ethan string me along, wasting my youth, living in this twisted, pointless state of feeling less than everyone else. Until one night at a club, this incredibly handsome kid approached me. He was terrible at hitting on girls, just awkwardly downing drink after drink, thinking it would impress me. I hated that kind of naivete. I wasn't into rookies, but I took him home that night. It wasn't the drinking that got to me. It was just, I saw a familiar shadow in him. A shadow I had buried deep in my mind along with the rest of my disgusting past. A forbidden place no one was ever allowed to go. I figured he worked for the club or something. When I took him home, he overheard me on a drunken phone call with my best friend, just tearing into those spoiled, second-generation rich kids with the ugliest words I could think of. Then I went off on my old classmates for trying to get close to me now that I had money. I saw him stiffen in the passenger seat. I thought I'd scared him, so I laughed and patted his head. "Don't worry," I said. "I'm not like this in bed." He forced a smile and seemed to get lost in thought. He told me his name was Black Anderson, and that he didn't have any money or a job. Our CEO's last name was also Anderson, so I joked, "You should check the family tree. Maybe you're a long-lost relative and can get a handout." Black just laughed awkwardly. Black was handsome. He had a great body, and pretty soon I wanted him to move in with me. He was a genuinely good person. I gave him my credit cards, bought him things, showered him with luxury brands, but he never got greedy. I used to think he could have been a monk. He was so calm and unconcerned with material things. And he was so devoted to me. Even though everyone told him I was just playing with him, he was serious about us for 3 whole years. You can't be with someone for that long and not feel anything. Every night, I'd wake up screaming from nightmares about my past, and I would cling to him. Every time I drank until I was sick, cried for my mom, Black would be there, telling me he would love me enough for the both of them. Every time I'd get consumed by my jealousy of rich people, Black would just listen silently to all my ugliest thoughts, quietly patting my back. 3 years went by. I told everyone I was just having fun, but deep down, I knew it wasn't true. I had feelings for him. I was even thinking about getting Black some kind of administrative job at the company and marrying him. But then, in our 3rd year together, right when I was ready to settle down, Ethan came back. When I threw a welcome back party for Ethan, I didn't invite Black. But Ethan saw a picture of Black on my best friend's phone and sneered, "He's pretty good looking." I just smiled and said nothing. Within a few days, Ethan requested a transfer back to headquarters, working on my team, asking for my help with his projects. I agreed. Ethan was pleased and said jokingly, "So kick that poor kid to the curb. It's time for us to get serious." I frowned when he called him a poor kid. I hated anyone being called poor. I especially hated hearing Black described that way. But this was Ethan. Marrying him meant I could finally be part of an educated, respectable family. My kids could be college professors. The misery and inferiority of my childhood had twisted into a bloodthirsty beast inside me, sharp and fierce, devouring all my feelings, my entire conscience. I wanted to completely erase every trace of my past and become someone new, an Alice who had no past. For those few days, I couldn't even look at Black. I barely spoke to him. He thought I was just stressed from work and even offered to give me a cat to help me relax. He made me soup, invited me to go hiking. He was so careful and sweet with me. I thought about it and thought about it and decided the only way I could talk to him was if I got drunk first. I called my best friend and Black to go to a karaoke bar. I drank recklessly. The whiskey stung my nose and made me cough and tear up. When I was drunk enough, I lay in Black's arms and laughed. "We're done," I said. I guess all my years of training myself to be hard had paid off. I had become a creature with no emotions, only goals. I said it just like that, watching the light in Black's eyes die under the colored lights of the karaoke room. I thought he would beg me. For a second, I even hoped he would. I think if he had asked, I might have actually changed my mind. But he just stood up quietly, nodded, and turned to leave. It was as if our 3 years together meant nothing to him. I was instantly furious. Ethan had said he suspected I had real feelings for Black. He told me to prove him wrong by sending Black to our new, important client. We'd heard this new client, a woman, had just gone through a bad breakup and was feeling vulnerable. The old me, the ruthless me, would have agreed without a second thought. But that day, I was actually hoping Black would beg me not to do it. If he had, I might have reconsidered everything with Ethan. I definitely wouldn't have pushed him on someone else. But Black showed no hesitation at all. It stung. I smiled and handed him the key card. "Go keep the client company," I said, "and I'll give you a nice breakup bonus." Black was already at the door, his face lit by the light from the hallway. I saw a flash of pain in his eyes. It made me happy. At least he was hurting. I thought I was prepared. I never expected that seeing Black and Chloe together would hurt so much. It felt like an invisible hand was squeezing my heart, its nails digging into the muscle, twisting and twisting until it was a bloody, mangled mess. The pain was more than I could take, and I was known for my tolerance. I didn't care what the clients thought. I rushed over to confront Black, even though I had no right to question him anymore. For the first time ever, the gentle Black I knew looked at me with cold eyes and told me I had no right to interfere in his life. He sneered. "Or what? Are you planning to dump Ethan?" I thought I would shake my head without a second thought. Who wouldn't choose Ethan? But in that moment, I hesitated. My brain was screaming at me that Ethan was the only choice, the only way to finally escape my past. But there was a voice in my heart, a sad, quiet voice, asking, "Can you let Black go? Can you stand it? How could you possibly stand it?" I grew up in the gutter. I learned a long time ago to always make the rational choice. In that moment, I cried and said I couldn't let go of Ethan. The voice in my heart sighed, a long, deep sigh, as if it could already see the pain and loneliness waiting for me. After Black left, I started having nightmares every single night. In every nightmare, a mob of people was chasing me, chasing, and there was always someone running beside me, but I could never see his face. Every night, I'd wake up crying, my hand reaching out for Black beside me. But he wasn't there. More than once, I just sat there in the dark until dawn. I kept telling myself I would forget him, eventually, just like I forgot my childhood. If you want to forget something badly enough, you can. But I realized with a sinking feeling of despair that this was different. Black was different. I couldn't forget him. When I saw Black walk into the company to pick up Chloe, I was overwhelmed by panic, jealousy, and a pain so sharp it took my breath away. I wanted to run over and grab him, to beg him to take me back right there in front of her. Seeing him drive away in that sports car made me panic even more. I was terrified that if he was happy with her, he would never come back to me. I called Black and told him Chloe was just playing with him, that he shouldn't take it seriously. But God knows I wasn't trying to help him. I just couldn't stand the thought of him looking at another woman with those eyes. But Black just replied calmly, "Weren't you just playing with me, too?" I was stunned. I had nothing to say. He was right. What right did I have to warn him about people? Wasn't I the one who had treated him the worst of all? That day, Ethan proposed to me, and I accepted in a daze. I knew I had no way out. Ethan was my only option, but my heart still ached. It ached for something important I had lost, leaving a gaping hole where it used to be. I imagined Black was a million different things. A club promoter, a gigolo, a struggling actor, a waiter. But I never, not in a million years, imagined he was the heir to Anderson Corporation. When he walked into that meeting room, I was stunned. My first shock was pure instinct, telling me my career was in danger. But after that came a different kind of fear, a deeper fear I couldn't even describe. It felt like the worst pain of my life was about to hit me. I was terrified, so terrified that I threw away my pride and chased him to his office. I begged him to just look at me, just once. If he looked at me, maybe he would remember that he used to love me. But he didn't look at me. He was looking at Chloe with the same look in his eyes he used to save for me. I never imagined that seeing Black look at another woman with so much tenderness would hurt so badly. The pain was so sharp, I had to clutch my chest just to stay on my feet. But it's okay, I told myself. After clawing my way up for so many years, there's nothing I can't endure. But then, in the next second, Black told me he was Black Morgan. I couldn't take it anymore. The moment he said that name, I heard a loud bang in my head. Boom. It was the sound of the high walls I had built around those memories, the ones I'd buried so deep. All those cruel, embarrassing, painful memories came flooding back. And in the deepest, darkest part of the ruins of my mind, a little boy was standing there, quietly looking at me. "We promised we'd be together," he seemed to say. "Did you forget?" I fell and cut my hand. Blood was everywhere, but I didn't care. I stared at Black, finally remembering why he had always looked so familiar. The quiet ache in my heart turned into a wail. "I warned you," a voice in my head screamed. "I warned you this would happen." Tears were streaming down my face. The pain was so bad I couldn't even stand. My childhood protector, my teenage hope, the only beautiful memory in my entire ugly past, the only pure thing I had ever known. And I treated him like a toy. I played with him until I got bored, and then I threw him away. I suddenly remembered. After I broke up with Black, I found all the credit cards in the drawer, all the gifts still in their boxes in the closet. The only thing missing was my old sketchbook. The sketchbook I'd told him to throw out. The one he'd fished out of the trash, like it was a treasure and kept. That sketchbook held all the warmth of our childhood. And now, Black had given it back to me, severing our last tie. I covered my face and sobbed, unable to stop. Black cleaned and bandaged my hand. He sighed. "Alice, this is really it. We're at the end." I thought I heard him sigh again. "All those days I waited for you. If you had just turned back once, we wouldn't be here." Suddenly, I had no strength left to say anything. I had fought for more than 10 years. I never gave up on anything. As long as I could talk, I could defend myself. But in that moment, I had nothing left. I could let down anyone in the world, but not Black Morgan. That was the one thing I couldn't do. And I had. It broke me. It drained every last bit of strength I had. Later, I took a month off. I went to churches, praying for a chance to go back in time. It felt like the only thing keeping me alive. But after a month, time hadn't changed. My despair just grew deeper every day, and so did my longing for Black. I couldn't stop myself. I had to go see him. He was dressed impeccably in a suit, smiling, looking so happy. I suddenly realized it was a kind of happiness I had never seen on him before, a happiness I had never given him. I knew I should let him go, let him be happy, but I couldn't accept it. I just really missed my Morgan, my Black, the only person in the world besides my mom who had ever been good to me, and he'd been good to me twice. I begged Black to give me another chance, but he interrupted me, smiling at something over my shoulder. I turned and saw Chloe standing there. She was wearing a beige dress, standing in a pool of sunlight, looking so gentle and bright. Her smile was like a knife in my heart. It was a smile that someone like me, someone who lived in the shadows, could never have. My old inferiority complex came rushing back. I shrank back into the corner, watching Black and Chloe walk away hand in hand, and I just stood there, drowning in the excruciating pain of my own jealousy. In that moment, I knew I had lost all my chances. It was time for me to disappear. I quit my job. I used to be a person who only cared about climbing the ladder, but overnight, I lost the will to fight. I broke off my engagement with Ethan. He asked me once, "Is it because I can't find a job now? Is that why you're looking down on me?" I just shook my head. No, it's because I'm looking down on myself. I went back to our old neighborhood. I opened a little convenience store near our old elementary school. The store faces the playground where Black and I used to sit and watch the stars. Back then, little Black would point up at the sky and say, "Alice, my Aries is right there, and your Scorpio is over there." I had no idea if he was pointing at the right stars, but I just nod along. "They're not far apart," he'd say. "That means Aries and Scorpio are good friends and they'll never be separated." Then he'd scratch his head and laugh. "Just like us. We'll never be apart." I run my little store, and at night, I watch the stars from that same playground. To this day, I still can't tell which one is Aries and which is Scorpio. But it doesn't matter. As long as I know they're the same stars Black and I looked at together. As long as I still have the memories. I was alone for the rest of my life. Black was in the news a lot. He and Chloe got married. They had a son and a daughter. His business got bigger and bigger. He grew up. He wasn't the shy boy who used to awkwardly try to impress me anymore. Once, a reporter asked him, "Have you only ever loved your wife?" I saw him pause for just a second. Then he smiled and nodded. "Yes." I covered my face and wept. I was 50 years old that year. That was the year I finally learned to tell Aries from Scorpio. But it was too late. For the rest of my life, I would never see my Black again. My boy.